2023 is over, and Star Citizen has had a year of ups and downs. What players need now is a stable patch to enjoy before the major changes of 2024 begin. With structural salvage, shared and nested cargo box containers, multi-crew spawn support, new locations, AI, and new vehicles, this could seem like a pretty decent update to the game. But what does it all mean for the game? Today we'll be looking at the features in Star Citizen's latest update from biggest to small, and how those features will continue to develop in the following updates. If you like what you see by the end, and want to keep following along, consider subscribing to the channel for more Star Citizen news, gameplay, and podcasts. And thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk. It may seem like we only just had an alien ship enter the game. It's because we did, like 1 month ago. But different teams are working on different ships, and the team who has been building the Aopoa Santok Yai has been doing so for quite some time. It's a ship we've been updated on throughout the year in videos and monthly reports, and it represents the final ship from Aopoa that we know of. It's a one-person medium fighter with omnidirectional thrusters for high maneuverability compared to just about anything else. At the time of writing, it carries 4 size 3 weapon mounts and 8 size 2 missiles. It carries no cargo and really does not function as anything more than a fighter, so it will likely be a ship reserved for very specific styles of flight and combat. If you want to learn more about how the lore of the game affects ships like this in other parts of Star Citizen, I'll be releasing a video about that very soon, so check back here in a few days. Another vehicle coming in 322 is the X1 hoverbike from Origin. This vehicle was introduced way back in 2017, 6 years ago, and took what many would probably say is far too long to enter the game. Even as the Aopoa Nox, Drake Dragonfly, and CO Hoverquad were all made available in-game since its announcement, and the 400i, sold with a special hangar made for the X1, was released, the X1 for some reason was nowhere to be seen. Finally, the last hovercraft we know about is in the game. That is, until the new vehicle we saw at CitizenCon that I hope is Tumbril. These hoverbikes offer the most luxurious speed bike experience with a mostly covered canopy and highly protective chassis. The hoverbike experience right now can be pretty hit or miss, offering immersive maneuvers on planetary surfaces and just generally acting like nonsense. How different the experience of this bike is compared to the others in-game is still up for debate, but this will likely offer a very similar experience in atmosphere. It comes in 3 versions: the original, the Force with an extra shield, and the Velocity, which is lighter and loses the size 1 weapon, gaining some speed. None of the options will allow you to carry cargo though, and all of them are a very, very tight squeeze into that purpose-made hangar in the 400i. The Drake Cutter has also been added as the 3rd variant of the small plucky starter ship. It's meant to be a bit of a camper van in that it supports long-distance general gameplay for a single player with a bed and whatever facilities you might need, and a little extra space over the other variants, much like the Mustang Beta or Avenger Titan. These are the new vehicles of Star Citizen 322, which for some is the most important part. I personally like what comes next though. The only new locations coming to Star Citizen Alpha 322 are the 15 new settlement derelicts we've been hearing about for most of 2023. We've watched them grow to include new biomes, designs, and archetypes over the last 8 months, and after a couple delays, the locations have landed on Microtech and Hurston to provide more expansive, above-ground locations with neutral AI and the new faction, the Dusters. I haven't been able to explore these locations nearly enough, but from my limited experience and what we've seen in videos, these locations act a bit like the larger towns we will find in Pyro, as the upgraded versions of the small derelicts we have and a continuation of the initial settlements, including Ghost Hollow and Whistler's Crypt. From here, once server meshing can support it, we will likely see these points of interest as well as others all over the game as star systems come online. They will be placed in the hundreds across star systems when servers can handle it, and they should offer a lot more diversity to the ground-based gameplay we currently have. Jumptown has also seen an update in Alpha 322, with a 4th location being added as well as a Rastar remake of the others to bring them up to date with the rest of the game. While we have plenty more additions before the character customizer comes into the game next year, we will see some new showcased hair in the game in 322. This does not include customization options for hair, but it does introduce more than 15 updated hairstyles with better physics and styling, while also updating the previous hairstyles that existed. While there's some way to go on physics, collision, and choice, the new hairstyles do look pretty good. but expect another big expansion to the system next year that includes the actual character creator and beards. There are 4 planned categories of salvage gameplay in Star Citizen: hull scraping, structural salvage, component retrieval, and fluid siphoning. Structural salvage is being added to the game in 3.22 as the third possible method. What this does is allows any player in a salvaging ship to completely remove the ship from existence, converting it into metal boxes that can be sold for money. While we still can't use it for crafting, this adds more depth to the profession that was mainly just power washing before, even though this is mainly just pushing a button. While this first edition is pretty much just functional, like many other parts of the game, it's going to take on a lot more work in the future. Something about the goal of Star Citizen, which many games do aim for, is a diversity of gameplay. So many interlocking game systems are meant to build a community of experiences that are all different because of the context. A salvager can reap just as much enjoyment out of a dangerous ship reclamation in the dark corners of the verse, worrying about fuel, transportation, and protection, as they can disposing of ship husks in the orbit around Hurston in the safety of Hurston's security, however safe that is. The gameplay itself is the same, but given all the ways that engineering and piracy, cargo logistics and reputation, and even your ship's facilities can affect a game session with you and your friends, there's a lot more to consider than just the gameplay at hand. That being said, what currently represents structural salvage still isn't good enough. It uses incomplete animations to simulate ship destruction for the sake of the feature and getting it out on time. This is because the damage system that allows things like ships to break apart into many different pieces, which is called Maelstrom, still isn't ready. We saw it at CitizenCon, so we know what it'll look like, but it's not actually in the game yet. So the looks of this process are going to change drastically in the future, as we will go from predefined ship destruction to a more systemic way of pulling ships apart. Whether this process will be first gated behind hull scraping the ship, cutting it into pieces, or siphoning out all of the explosive fluids first, a la Hard Space Shipbreaker, is more up in the air. But this part of salvaging can be used for server cleanup by players or NPCs. This will act as a great method of beginning salvage missions and also a good way to keep servers clean. And once all ships are made up of the actual materials that make them, this will allow us to reclaim a lot of base building and crafting materials. This is a really big addition to the game. But like other features before it, like the tractor beam, cargo trolleys, and reputation, it's going to be more interesting in the long run than it is now. That being said, if you have a friend with a reclaimer, I'd team up and try this profession out. It's one of the few convincing ways you can get 6+ people together in a multi-crew, multi-ship operation at the moment. We did this on stream last week actually, I'll leave the video with the gameplay link down below. And with 16 SCU crates in the reclaimer and both ships now having a buffer of internal storage, which means you don't have to constantly run downstairs, this is a much more fun profession. In 3.22, the cargo refactor is taking another step forward by introducing size 1 through 8 SCU storage containers that can be spawned into your ship, accessed by anybody, and used as a moving inventory. This has a few different effects. First, you can now buy items from shops in bulk and send them to a box on your ship, which makes supplying events very easy. You can also do the opposite, grouping items up in a box and selling them all at the shop. This is made for very easy looting in bunkers, where you can drag all the weapons and armor into the box, bring it back to your ship, and then sell it. Also got some gameplay on this I'll leave down below. With this change, you can also store boxes inside of boxes for easy bulk transportation of different items. Granted, with item stacking, there's not much use for that, but these boxes can also be moved and interacted with just like any other inventory. The creative uses people will come up with for this should be pretty interesting, but there are some shortcomings. Currently, commodities in 1/8 SCU boxes do not work on the same system. They're still not interactable, so they can't be stored or used for additional storage, but that change can come a little bit later. It's also not entirely straightforward how things can be transferred around, as this is currently a system in flux, so certain inventories can have stuff dragged into them while others can't. We will probably have to wait until after freight elevators and persistent hangars, the new inventory menu, and the freight kiosk are in the game for this all to become more intuitive. Immediately, this change may not impact everyone, but it's only a matter of time before you start noticing it. The ongoing cargo refactor continues to be one of the most consequential developments in Star Citizen over recent years. Star Citizen's FPS is actually starting to take a nice step up in quality. We saw this coming more into focus during CitizenCon, with almost an hour dedicated purely to the FPS improvements coming to the game. In 3.22, recoil is being reworked to improve weapon diversity in specific niches amongst weapons, and enhancing the visual effects of the actual gun moving. Alongside this improvement, a few weapons are changing. The LH-86 is now fully automatic and very fun to use. The Demeco, S71, P4AR, and Lumen have all increased fire rate, and force reactions have also been updated to occur at more contextually accurate times. Time to kill has also had its first adjustment, as was stated at CitizenCon would happen. Damage modifiers have been adjusted to allow for more consistent firefights and times, and I can confirm you are much less likely to go down quickly when getting shot. As health gets lower, injuries appear more likely, but my health hits 0 less. Along with recent AI FPS enhancements, this is going to make mercenary missions much more interesting. Arena Commander also saw a few more updates in 3.22, with the biggest being support for multi-crew ships. This change alone will likely lead to a lot more folks showing their friend Star Citizen. With the ability to easily jump into combat scenarios for 30 minutes of fun, players can more easily enjoy the game casually than getting stuck in an event for 2.5 hours. And in the future, engineering will be part of the experience too, and maybe other industrial professions will be possible as well at some point. The mode is also getting a couple new maps, both pulling new derelict settlement locations out of the PU for us to practice with them in controlled environments. One with more strictly FPS gameplay, while the other will also feature ship combat. We are also seeing a multitude of changes to various gameplay modes that you can check out in the patch notes linked down below. It's quite a lot. Another addition making its way into 3.22 from CitizenCon is the new AI faction we've been reading about all year in monthly reports, the Dusters. These lovely space folks are generally taking on more mining-related missions, but will likely pop up in various missions we're already running just to diversify the experience until they have more unique missions in the future. They don't do too much in-game right now. They're a neutral faction at most of the derelict settlements, but they'll be here to offer those missions and some new reputation over the coming years as more gameplay comes online. Among the smaller changes this patch are denser forests on Microtech, which are building out the planet to be the best place in the verse to make home, mining balances, which have been made on top of the big changes earlier this year to continue building gameplay that targets both moles and prospectors with better resource distribution. Shield components have been removed from most bikes, highlighting the strength of the X1 Force, and the hover settings of those bikes have also been changed a bit. And a new version of Deathmatch has been added to Arena Commander Kill Collector, where you collect trophies dropped by killed players. This is included in those Arena Commander changes I mentioned earlier. Alpha 3.22 is the cherry on top of a fairly good year for group gameplay and industrial enthusiasts in Star Citizen. Not only does it continue to expand on initiatives we've been testing all year like salvage and cargo management, it introduces new locations, AI improvements, and some of the biggest changes to Arena Commander ever. 2023 as a whole was an up and down kind of year, and 3.22 is a pretty good way to close it out. It gives us probably the best stability we have felt in the game all year. Most of the things I've been trying are working, and servers have been treating our org pretty well. There are plenty of features missing here that we were supposed to get this year, shout out to the letter from the chairman, but I've got another video to cover that for you coming later. For now, 3.22 does what it needs to at the end of the year, provides a stable environment to play for the next quiet month, and introduces some new features to experiment with. And for that, I'd encourage regular players to give this one a go. Casual players might be worth it, but we also have a lot more coming in the next 6 months that's going to make this game a lot better for you. And I'll be covering that over the next weeks and months, as I said. So if you want to learn more about it, consider subscribing to this channel and my second one for podcasts and longer discussions. I hope you learned something in this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.